out under the stars in December of 2024. Why? To see all the planets, plus a bunch of close encounters between the moon and those planets, as well as the annual Geminid meteor shower. I'm Rob, your last minute astronomer, bringing astronomy to normies and nerds with little time to spare. And along with me today is my son, Soccorso.
Hi, everybody.
And we'll start by talking about the month's big events, and then we'll move on to highlight the naked-eye planets, and then finish up with the lunar phases. Also, you can plan ahead better than us. And we're going to start off with the opposition of Jupiter. Now, basically, all this means is that Jupiter is going to be way up high in the sky. In fact, at its highest, it's probably going to be about 70 degrees above the horizon. As you can see, it's above Taurus there and above Orion. And opposition means we're basically in line. There's the sun, the Earth, and then Jupiter. We're all basically in a line. We can see it from sunset to sunrise, and it's the best time to observe. In fact, I believe we went out last night and observed a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
So we went outside, we used a telescope, and we were able to see Jupiter. When we magnified it to what its max would be, we got to see it very well. We were able to even see stuff like the bands, as you call them, on
Cloud
Jupiter.
bands. Yep.
And then what's that? No, that was on Saturn.
The four Galilean moons.
And it was amazing. Something else that would help us find Jupiter is it's like in between the horns of Taurus.
Then the next big event is from the 13th to the 14th, and it is the annual Geminid meteor shower. Now, the Geminids is usually a shower that can produce up to 100 meteors per hour, but this year is not going to be that year. And Soccorso, do you think you can tell us why?
From our lunar calendar, it shows that the full moon will be shining that day. So it will like brighten and shine, making it harder for you to see the actual meteors.
So yeah, you're right. The moon puts a lot of light pollution into the sky, and it lights up our atmosphere just like the sun does, making the sky blue, but the moon at a much lower rate. But it does block out some of the lighter or fainter meteors. However, it's still a good idea to look, right?
Yes.
Because a couple reasons. Well, the main reason is you never really know when a big meteor might actually go by. It could happen. It could be bright enough to overpower the full moon. Okay? But you also want to look at the whole sky in general, because they're going to be everywhere. But the radiant is in the constellation of Gemini. That's where they will appear to be coming from, is from that radiant there.
Is that why it's called the Geminid?
Exactly, right? Wherever that radiant is, whatever constellation that's in, that's where the meteor shower is, or the meteors appear to be coming from. So the Leonids, the radiant is in Leo. Okay? Now, you do want to dedicate at least 20 to 30 minutes. I always say this, just put a podcast in, go outside, or some music or something, and just pay attention for 20 to 30 minutes of just looking at the sky, right? And there's a couple reasons for that. What's one of those?
It allows you to dark adapt. It allows you to sort of see better. Your pupils
Dilate, they get bigger.
They adapt, and it allows you to see more of the sky, see easier. It's like and that's sort of why if you're out there for an hour just doing some stargazing, when you come back in, it looks insanely bright. So it's hard to see. It's honestly kind of hard to see. And also, go to the bathroom before you leave, because if you go back in, it will make the dark adapting process slower.
Yep. So definitely make sure that you can dedicate that time. Also, find a dark location. Try to make sure you're not like right in the middle of, well, you don't want to be in the middle of the street for many reasons, but don't be out by the street lights, maybe in your backyard, away from local light pollution. And that's your best bet. Don't go
Yeah.
traveling for this one because the moon's going to drown it out. But also check the weather. You don't want to do anything special and then it be cloudy and you wasted your time. And yeah, just make sure you take a look up. In fact, even if you're just out there here and there, just take a look up and see if anything pops out. You never really know. Now, the next event is December 21st, which is the winter solstice. At least for us, it's the December solstice for the whole Earth. And that's when the nighttime for us is the longest. I believe we're at about 15 hours of nighttime. And only that makes it
15?
9 hours of daylight. So
What?
that's what happens. So, whole other explanations for that elsewhere online. But that's the 21st. And then lastly, Christmas. Let's say you get a brand new telescope and you want to take it out and take a look at stuff. Well, this Christmas is a really good Christmas for that.
Yes.
So, of course, so what planets can we see?
We can see Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. And for an extra challenge, you can maybe even get Uranus and Neptune in your scope early in the night, and then maybe even get Mercury rising low in the southeast right before sunrise.
Yeah. All right. Let me show you what we got here. Okay. So on December 25th, and this is at 7:20. Even at 7:20 after dinner, you can see 4 planets right away.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, you got Venus over here in the southwest, Saturn up higher in the southwest. Jupiter is over there by Taurus, and Mars is rising over here in the east northeast. Now, for Venus, one of the cool parts about Venus, if I magnify that, is if you take your telescope out. Now it sets by 8:30, so you're going to have to be quick on this. But if you take your telescope out, you'll be able to see Venus in its half phase.
What's that mean?
Well, you're about to see.
It's like a half moon.
Yeah, it's like a half moon because from our perspective, the sun is on one side and Venus is just to the left of that, so the right half of Venus is lit up. Now, let's go back out and let's say you take another moment and you look for Saturn, okay? And if you go and take a look at Saturn, you're going to be able to see the slightly tilted rings. Now, it's going to be small in the telescope, to be fair. Don't expect a Hubble image, but you're going to see something like this, okay? You might even be able to see the gaps in the rings, depending on what you have. And usually I can see Titan. It's pretty bright. And I think the other night we saw Dione, and Rhea is also sometimes visible, but that's there for Saturn, okay? Now, also out there, like we said, is Jupiter. And you can also see the 4 Galilean moons, Europa, Io, Ganymede, and Callisto. Those are easy to see, actually, in the telescope. And for Jupiter, you're looking above Taurus's head. Now, Io is actually behind Jupiter for a little bit, but after 8:30, I think right around 8:30, 20 is when Io comes back out from behind Jupiter.
Whee!
And then that is visible all night. And then right after midnight, I believe, is when, there it is, the red spot you might be able to see after midnight on Jupiter. Okay, so let's head back out a little bit again.
Dad.
And yes,
isn't that green line the path of the sun/moon?
it is. It's called the ecliptic.
So I'm noticing that most of the planets are almost basically on the line of the sun/moon.
Yeah.
So if you can find that, then you could pretty easily find Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, and Venus.
Yeah, that's actually really, really great segue, buddy. I mean, what I always envision in the night sky when I go out is I think which direction is north, and then I face the opposite direction, and there's that arc, which is the ecliptic, and that helps me find the planets as well. Now, also up there is Mars. It is not going to look like this in your telescope.
No way.
I looked last night.
No way.
It'll probably look more like a little red disc like that, and maybe you can even see that northern northern polar ice cap up there. You might see a little white in it, Maybe you'll see Phobos and Deimos. It's twin moons. But Mars is going to be there, and that's going to be out pretty much all night. So if I were to go out, and I think this is going to be a challenge that we do, to see if we can
Yep.
see all the planets in one night. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet is Uranus and Neptune.
I thought I mentioned those.
Maybe we did mention that.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. You're going to need a sky map, or you're going to need a telescope that can find these things on their own. But
Everything-
Uranus is up here to the right of Jupiter, and Neptune is up here to the left of Saturn.
Everything's
They're just going to be like teal, bluish dots, really. Nothing really on the surface that you can see. What were you saying?
every single planet seems to be along this green line, or at least close to it.
You know why that is?
Why?
Well, if you had the sun, okay, and
my toys as an
all of the planets orbit almost perfectly on this plane called the ecliptic plane. So all of them kind of line up, kind of like the rings of Saturn all line up. So if we are in that ring of planets, then when we look out, they will all appear to be on the same line. So that's 4 visible planets and 2 not naked eye visible planets. And we talked about them in the telescope, but there's one more planet left and some other things. Now, if I were to go out with my telescope, definitely Jupiter and Saturn, right? But also definitely take a look at M42, the Orion Nebula. Okay?
M42?
M42, Messier 42. It is a nebula in Orion's belt. It is super duper cool. Just a cluster of gas and dust that's like thousands of light years wide. Stars are forming in there.
Nice.
Or I would take a look at the Pleiades up here by Taurus. That's always cool because you can look at it with your naked eye and you can see 5, 6, 7 stars. But then when you look at it with your telescope, you're seeing a lot more, right?
It kind of looks like a face in some way.
Yeah.
It's also along the ecliptic line.
That's just coincidental. And then there's also the Andromeda Galaxy, right? This is our neighbor galaxy, which is tens of thousands of light years wide, and I think 2.5 million light years away. So you're actually looking at the galaxy as it was 2.5 million years ago. I think those are the right numbers. Okay.
About.
So you have on Christmas night a lot of good things to see. Oh, we forgot the morning. Let's move forward. As you see throughout the night, everything sort of shifts toward the west. Oh, and there's a nice little crescent moon there. Oh, there's Mercury kind of peeking out. Now,
you can't even say it.
There it is. There's Mercury just rising in the southeast. And by sunrise, it's only about 10, 12 degrees above the horizon. That's going to be tough to see. I wouldn't even take the telescope out for that. I would just bundle up and get outside to try to find
at that
one.
point.
Okay. All right. So those are the events for the month. Why don't we move on to the planets?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so for sunset planets, so right around 6 o'clock-ish, Soccorso, what planets do we have?
For the naked eye sunset planets, we have Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter.
Very good. Now, what you'll notice, I'm going to shift on over here to the southwest, and we're going to take a look at this as the month goes by. See, on the 1st, Venus is low on the horizon. In fact, let me go right to sunset, which is actually 4:39. Whew, that is close. I'm going to go a little bit later, let's say like 5 o'clock-ish. Venus is 20 degrees above the horizon, and Saturn is over here a bit further away. Now, as the month goes by, Venus kind of rises up, okay? And it's going to end up about 30 degrees above the horizon, and it's getting closer to Saturn. So by the end of the month, at sunset, which is a little bit later, 4:48, okay? And I'm going to go, let's go to 5 o'clock. Venus is now 30 degrees above the horizon, and Saturn is only 15 degrees away from that. So they kind of merge together by the end of the month. Now, Jupiter, on the other hand, is pretty much always on that other side of the sky, right? So if we start on the 1st, it's kind of just rising around sunset. And then as the month goes by, at the same time of night every night, it's going to be higher and higher, but it's going to be off in the east. So for sunset, you're looking at Venus and Saturn in the west, southwest, and Jupiter off in the east. For the middle of the night, so let's go a little bit later if we're looking at this whole thing, December 1st, and let's go later at night, let's say like 10 o'clock, okay? At 10 o'clock, Saturn is actually starting to set over there. Jupiter is way up high, okay? And Mars is rising over there in the east.
With
okay?
Cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yep, right in the constellation of Cancer next to Gemini. And throughout the month, Saturn, actually, everything sort of shifts to the west at the same time, but they kind of remain in the same general area. And the last portion here is the morning. So, and this doesn't even start until like, I'd say December 14th, maybe. And in the morning, you can start seeing, let me go a bit forward in time. Oh, there it is. There's Mercury. Okay. Now, Mercury is going to be low. Okay. And even on the 15th at, I don't want to go to 7 a.m. That might be a little too late. Let's go 6:45. Okay. At 6:45, it is only 8 degrees above the horizon. Watch what happens though. 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th. And right around Christmas time is when it's going to reach its like maximum elongation there. But for the last half of the month, you might be able to catch Mercury. Now you will need a clear view of the horizon.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
And you're going to need clear skies. All right. So keep that in mind, but you can see that in the morning. All right. Shall we move on to the moon?
Sure.
Okay. All right, now we start off the lunar cycle this month. On the very first day is
the new moon. It's the darkest sky, so you can see a good amount of constellations and a good amount of stars.
Mm-hmm. Then we have a week of evening crescents where there's a crescent moon off in the west after sunset.
And then on the 8th, we have the first quarter moon. It is visible until midnight.
And then we've got a week of the evening gibbous moons, which means it's mostly lit up, and we can see it after sunset.
And then on the 15th, we have the full moon, which is visible all night.
Then we're going to have a week of waning gibbous moons, which means it's mostly lit on the left-hand side, but it doesn't rise until later at night.
And then we have the last quarter moon, which is on the 22nd. It is visible midnight into the morning.
And then we have a week of morning crescents. And then I believe on the 31st, it actually starts the cycle all over again with the new moon, but we'll just skip that for now. All right, so the moon, as usual, goes across the sky as well, and it will pass by all of these planets that we've been talking about. So let's take a look at when that happens. In fact, the very first one is December 4th. Soccorso, which planet?
Venus.
Right. It goes right past Venus, and you're looking in the southwest, and it's after sunset, and it's less than 15 degrees above the horizon, but it'll be up there. A very thin crescent moon. Might be tough to spot the moon, but easy to find Venus. Then, a couple days later, let's fast forward this. Let's see, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Oh, there we go. On the 7th and the 8th, you see the moon close by Saturn. Okay. Now it's 6 degrees to the right of Saturn on the 7th, and it sets later on. Anyway, then on the 8th, it's going to be on the opposite side of Saturn. Okay. They're by about 7 degrees. So if you're having trouble finding Saturn, look on the 7th and the 8th. Now, what's the next planet that it's going to run into?
Jupiter.
Very good. And that's going to be on the 14th. You'll see that the moon and Jupiter are pretty close together right near Taurus, right?
What?
and about 5 degrees. So if you just hold your 3 fingers up, that width at arm's length, that's about how far away it's going to be. And it's going to set just before sunrise. And let me fast forward just a little bit here. I think you know which planet is next.
Mars.
Yes, and on the 17th, so just 3 days later, the moon and Mars are going to be right near each other, right? And they're going to start out about 4 degrees apart. But I want you to see what happens. See if you can tell me what happens throughout the rest of the night. I'm going to fast forward time a little bit. What do you notice about the moon and Mars?
They're getting closer.
Yeah.
They are basically touching.
Yeah, now this program often puts the moon bigger just so we know where it is because it really is small in the sky. So let me zoom in a little bit. There it goes. Now it's getting close to its actual size.
Now it's its actual size.
There you go. And let's keep going forward. And we'll notice that the moon and Mars get really close, probably closest right around 4:45 or so. Okay?
That's like half a degree.
That's right, it's half a degree. So if you took your pinky, about half the width of your pinky in between the moon and Mars at about 4:45 in the morning on December 18th. So it starts on the 17th. It starts on the 17th and ends on the 18th. Okay? So that is the sky. Soccorso, what are you looking forward to the most, you think?
Probably the Geminid meteor shower. We haven't seen that many meteors, so I'm really excited to see that. And I also want to see if we can see both Mars and the moon in one telescope picture. I want to see if you can just like aim it at the moon and then like go towards Mars a little bit and then see both in the same like telescope.
I like that idea. I think we should definitely do that.
Yeah.
And guess what? Next month, January, the moon's actually going to cover up Mars. It's called an occultation. We'll get to that next month. That's the sky for this month, December of 2024. If you find this advanced notice of the night sky to be helpful, please support this work by finding Last Minute Astronomer on Patreon. And don't forget to find Last Minute Astronomer on Facebook and Instagram. So till next month, I'm the Last Minute Astronomer with my son, wishing you fruitful plans and clear skies.
Music was produced by Deep Sky Dude and used with permission. Bye!